Sorry. Call the Township of Riversburg Cardinal Port of Johnstown Management Committee meeting, February 2024 at 6:31. Before I start, people, hope you can work with me. I have 2 ears are not working right. One's infected, another one's, both of them are full of wax, and the other one's infected, so I can hardly hear you. Thank you, Mr. Cameron. We have Mr. Cameron on Zoom, Mr. McCauley on Zoom, and I do believe Mr. sends his regrets and he's not here. Minji was here. Okay. So I hope you people can help me out here tonight, or it's going to be a long night. May I have the approval? Is there anything to add to the agenda? I'm going to take off. May I have a moved by Mr. Ward and seconded by Mr. Smell? That's the approval of the agenda. All in favor? Carried. Disclosure of security interest and general nature thereof. Is there any? Good.
None.
In presentations? There is none. Minutes of the previous Port of Johnstown meeting, January 30th, 2024. Is there any errors or omissions? We have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Mr. Martel and seconded by the Mayor Deschamps. All in favor? Carried. Discussion item. Excuse me. The business arising from the previous Port Management Committee. Is there any problems? Very good. We'll move on to number 7. Discussion item, Port Day update. Port Day update. Ms. Hernandez and Mr. Martel, are you guys gonna do the presentations?
Yeah,
You're on.
I can start and you can add.
Okay. Shoot.
Thank you. So we have the chance to meet last Friday. Mr. Martel, Robert, and myself to discuss about the Port Day on June 22nd. So we had the chance to go ahead and have a look what was done in the past and try to have some ideas from there. And we have some questions. Well, what was discussed was that we're gonna have some. I don't know. You want to show the?
It's up to you. Whatever you'd like to share with us.
Yeah. So what was discussed was that there's going to be a place for the kids to have like a little farm, have a presentation of some trucks maybe, and also have some the food that will be given by the port. So we have some questions for you regarding that. As last time, this event was done from 10 to 4, but it started at 11, right? 11 to 4. So if it's the hours, are we gonna keep the same hours? Last time it was done from, I think it was 10 to 4. And people usually, Robert mentioned that they arrive around 11 to have the free barbecue, and then around 2, 3 people was already gone. So are we okay to have the same hours? Because I know the mayor wanted to have time to do a speech. So is that again what he wants to do today? Well, that day. And if it's possible for you to confirm the invite list and the opening ceremony starts. How long would you like to take for that? And I don't know if you want to add, because we have some other questions too, but maybe you want to add something.
No, I think that pretty much covers it. Yeah, we were talking about having some speakers and hoping we could get a higher ranking official at this table to possibly invite some there of his choosing. We're looking for ideas, looking for help. We are going to try to do some sort of a truck kind of equipment show. So if you get some tractors, trucks, anything that you think would fit in, any ideas, anything, just shoot them to Regina or myself.
When's the day again?
June 22nd.
Through the chair to the GM, we would have a like an invitee list.
We do. So
Right.
it's just a matter of, we take care of the brokers and all that,
Yep.
the political realm of things. We
Yep.
just need to share that list and make sure we don't leave anybody out.
Yep.
As far as those invites go. So we're looking to, yourself and the group decide who you want to invite as far as the political group. So we can share that list and then, go from there, I guess.
Yeah, okay. Like I'm assuming we're thinking like the group that was here for the grain dryer announcement, like Frank obviously would be here. We've met with PA Sarrazin as well, which is his counterpart provincially. Same riding. I think that, you know, likely makes sense. MTO makes sense to me as well, right? He is governed that way. Hardeep's been, and you know, there's no harm in inviting them for the day. If they come, they come. If they don't, they don't. But
Provincially, you're talking provincially.
Provincially,
yeah.
Yeah. But I think federally, the counterparts for all those ministries makes the most sense, right? Yeah. Like you'll know who that should be federally as well.
We'll Sue and we'll provide a list. Still a good idea to have a list and then make sure we cover everything.
Yeah.
You know, the more eyes you get on the list, the more chance you have of not leaving somebody out.
Yeah.
Becca has a list as well, I know, before, so we'll group together on that.
Yeah, we can figure that out offline, right? My only
absolutely. We just want to make sure you guys get the final sort of check on the checklist. You look at who's coming, so you say, oh, this, you know, we want to get Council Aquasauce, we want to get
100%
Chiefs. There's quite a few of them, so they come on the list. And, you know, there's Clark, there's Francis Druid, and there's a list of others.
And Francis has been fantastic with the board as well as oh my gosh, he's from PEI, but I can't remember what his name is federally. Lawrence McCauley, right, is federal ag minister, and his PA is Francis. So both of those, whether whether he comes or not, you know, doesn't. I was
assuming Francis finalists tonight. We just want to make sure that you get that your input on that. I think that's part of it. You get you're on the political scene, so
yeah.
You know,
the only other ones that I would say is, you know, from the areas that serve the port services. So it'd be good to know, you know, locally the municipalities, that's great. But when it comes to like, do we go as far as Trenton for some big things? And if we do, does that mean that you invite, from a political perspective, you know, do we invite their MP, their MPP as well? It's more of a question.
Yeah, well, it's really up to yourself and the group here. That's what we're looking for tonight, is this other direction, because we're going to invite our brokers, and they do go to those different areas. Doesn't necessarily mean invite them all, because this isn't like the big opening ceremonies, announcements, and talk and so on. It can be, but it's not really. It's work. It's a celebration for the community, and so. You know, it doesn't matter to me who we invite. It's just a matter of the political part of this is really up to you guys to look for your direction on that. Yeah. So through the chair to the mayor and the port manager, are you comfortable working with that offline?
Yeah, we can figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty simple.
Yeah. Perfect. And then I guess the other input that we need is, you know, normally speeches start at 12 o'clock, and you know what that looks like. We want to be speakers, and so on and so forth. Do you want a MVP area or whatever you want to call it, reservation in front 2 rows like we did before, where all the politicians go there, or is it just, it's, you know, in the past, what we've experienced is because it's just before supper, free lunch, everyone really wants to get in line and get back going. You're trying to use the sort of herd them over to the seats to sit down and quiet down for the speakers. We always have a challenge with that. That's always difficult. So we knocked around a few different ideas, and potentially could you just do the speeches at the very beginning, and have to get everyone under the tent for that, or people just whoever comes over. We spent a lot of effort on getting people to try and quiet and get over there and get all the tables full. That took a little bit of time and effort. And in the end, it was when I spoke to different people that were in the audience, they couldn't. It was noisy, and it's quite a big tent. I know you've been there. It's quite a few tables, quite a few people. So we're kind of looking at that sort of thing. How you see the speakers. If you let's get it out of the way and do it at 11 o'clock. Maybe there won't be as many people there at that time, but if you're bringing in a lot of politicians, maybe you want to wait till then and get as many people in there as you like. So we're kind of throwing those different things around and
really, well, we'll continue it, I guess, offline as far as some of that goes. But I mean, I think, you know, for me, the importance probably is our ally in First Nation, like the Mohawk, and making sure that we have good representation as far as the Chiefs table goes. And from a speaker standpoint, you know, I still remember Henry talking, you know, and he was fantastic. And you know, Mr. Roundpoint is good, but I'd like to, I think it's Ibrahim, I'd like to, you know, have him speak if that's at all possible. So
Dr. Lickers.
No, he was not Dr. Lickers, not this time. No, I don't. Not this time. It's the Grand Chief now. Right?
Yes.
So I haven't had the opportunity to meet him yet, and I think that's a wonderful opportunity for all of us to continue that conversation with them that needs to go. So good day to have them.
We'll try to keep it the same sort of as we did in the past. It sounds like, you know, we'll get everyone there, you know, at 11 o'clock. I think 11 to 4. That's what we're kind of looking at. We can do 10 o'clock if you like, and then people start coming at 9:30. So we kind of need to know 10 or 11.
Like 11 to 3 works good, isn't it?
Well, 11 to 3, 11, that's fine. 11 to 3, 11 to 4. I found that between 3 and 4 people wanted to get out before leaving, right? It's kind of come to the port, do the conveyance. If there's a ship there, the Coast Guard, maybe do that, do your lunch. And so the whole thing is probably an hour and a half. Then you move on. We also talked about the port tours. Those are always difficult. We can only do so many. You know, we've got an aging elevator in there, and the actual elevator that goes up and down. And so you can only really put 4 people, 5 people in there at a time with a tour guide. So we can only run so many. So we're looking at, we'll put together sort of what we think will work and how we want to get that out to the public. We're thinking a draw or something where we'd like to know ahead of time who's going to be going on the tours so we can organize them rather than do it that day. And then we're struggling to, it takes a lot more voluntary at that point to try and get people together in that, whereas if they already know the time slot, I think that's what we did last time. It seemed to work well, especially just expectations. Like if you get 100 people through the elevator, that's probably what you're going to get, right? It's not like we could put 500 people through there. So the lucky winners of the draw or whatever, or if they have to answer questions we talked about support or do something in order to get in the running to be on the tour. We're kind of trying to, I don't know, spice it up that way, I guess.
Chris?
No, I mean, just, I think we can, well, we were having chats about it, you guys still have it all in hand, but I mean, could you do some of the speeches as well, while people are sitting down eating as well? I don't know if that's a problem or not, but it seems like you got a captive audience at least that way, so, you know, but it would get noisier, I guess, but, yeah.
The trick is sitting down and getting up. That's how you get everyone just to sit down at the same time, because you've got politicians making their speeches, and we try to get everyone sat, and then we start the speeches. Yeah. And at least you can keep them pretty much at bay maybe for 20 minutes, and you're pretty good. And you keep the speeches fairly quick, like we normally do, 2 minutes, whatever. But just leaving it, it'd be nice to be able to just leave it open, but it's pretty chaotic at that point. People, chairs moving out and. Yes, yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. So.
When you said trucks, you mean like we'll have trucks and also some various farm equipment as well? You mean some farmers around, or is that?
I think that's
is that
Take anything, yeah, tractors, lawn tractors. You know, it's like a touch truck kind of thing. If you have a
People
touch
love
truck
that.
on your farm.
Sounds good.
Would you like something like a petting zoo there or not?
We've had that before. We had a couple of spots there for petting zoo. So I think what we'll do is we have a whole section where we had children activities and so on. And Carrie's family was really good at that. She helped us tremendously in that, but she's not able to. I don't believe she is this year. So we're gonna. I think you're gonna go to a Sarah meeting coming up on the 27th. That's their next meeting, and you're gonna ask for volunteers there. Sarah usually helps us out. You can always use volunteers. I'm not sure, maybe speak to John Hunter about, he's got a group that saw that for parking. I'm thinking like you can get cadets and so on, but the parking you need to be careful. You kind of need some older people there.
We also have a new Optimus Club, Seaway Optimus Club. It was chartered about 4 weeks ago. Has a membership of about 40 people and growing.
Right.
And they would really come out and help out, I'm sure.
Right.
So.
Yeah, if you have a contact, you can get to Councillor Martel.
Yeah.
Or
I was speaking to him today, actually.
So. Good. So are you guys meeting?
Yeah.
Bi-weekly, weekly? Or?
Weekly for now, the next Friday. But this coming Friday, we're meeting again to have everything rolling on.
Cool.
We'll give you
Yeah. And yes,
Yeah,
go ahead.
so Regina, if I may, are there questions that you needed answered that you haven't gotten answered yet?
No, I think the question was about the guest list.
Yeah.
And
We'll refine,
yeah,
I think
so we'll
refine
take it offline for now.
Yeah.
And yeah, the hour, that was the other question. 11 to 3 seems to be 11 to 4.
Is that long enough?
oh, it is for us.
Can we make it work in 11 to 3?
I think we can. I mean,
11 to 3 or 11 to 4?
11 to 4, when it comes to 11 to 3 anyway.
Yeah.
So 11 to 4.
11 to 4.
All right, 11 people. We'll figure it. That I think that's it. We'll figure it.
We'll figure that out.
Yeah.
Right now, as we get things ordered, like the tent, the tables, these are the key things you got to order ahead of time. And you know, you can have some blow ups for the kids and the kids' activities, some of those slide things and all that. We've got to get that stuff ordered. So we'll nail that down at our next meeting and just make sure all the things need to be ordered ahead of time that we do. Get that done.
And I mean, and if this is worlds colliding, stop me whenever you need to stop me. But is this something that this as far as contacts and stuff goes, maybe the mayor for a recreation coordinator could help out from the town's perspective? But I think we have. I mean, they did an inflatable day last year, for instance, things like that. I don't know if that's problematic, but I mean, we might as well try and leverage the same same people if we can, right? Cost savings, but anyways, just putting it out there.
Certainly communication.
Yeah.
With respect.
Who's our main contact at the township? Who would you like it to be as far as these sort of conversation contacts? Is it you, Dave, or is it Wendy, or who would it be?
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. I can do that.
Sure.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Okay, are you okay with that, Eugene? Yeah. Okay, Joe?
Yeah. It's awesome.
Any other questions, people, before we move on? Frank? Frank?
No, I'm fine, Steve. Nothing from me.
Okay, what about you, Mr. Cameron? Okay. Good enough, we're moving on to 8A, grain operations report.
I'll be looking up for that, right? Sure. Thank you.
So for January, we ended with 77,462 metric tons. Our wheat shipments We're still seeing above average going on right now. Very small amount of activity bring down both corn and soybeans. Ending for corn, 41,638. Wheat, we're down to 24,256. Soybeans, 10,235. And the mixed grain, barley, rye, and oats, we're at 1332. We're in the total of 77,462. Just over 10,000 for trucks. 10,416. We shipped 14,427 out of the trucks. There was no vessel movement, and we were 916 for rail this year. On our reportable incidents, there's no change. And on our labor report, relatively close to last year, we're at 2492. So small difference being we had one extra employee, but we're almost the same numbers as we looked at.
Any questions, comments? On the floor? Mr. Mayor?
Steve, I've got a quick question if possible.
Good.
I'm assuming that this inventory level will basically stay where it is until almost August when the wheat crop comes in. So we're not likely to see any increase in inventory with ships coming in with anything during that period of time. So I'm just thinking about it from a revenue context. We're likely going to see less storage revenue in the coming year than perhaps we've had in past years, just given that we're going into the year with a relatively low inventory.
So that's correct to a certain point. We're actually going to be close in inventory revenues to last year. We had a low year last year. You can see 2023 we're at 79. Or in 2022 when we had 129,000 tons going into the new year, that's where we're seeing high revenues. So I expect our revenues stores is slightly below last year, but fairly close.
Thank you.
But I believe we're not seeing more. So far.
As of right now, the formal is showing you very slow. Last year we had increased with one broker who's looking to do spring movement. As of right now, that's not on the table. We don't have any increased activity for soybean as well. Small amounts are upcoming for rail, but that's outbound shipments. So that'll be wheat movement expected in February. But really no large impact from any brokers we've talked in the last 3 to 4 weeks for increasing revenue. So last year, yeah, we benefited from corn. We're not seeing that.
So to Frank's point, we will be seeing a lower, but when we compare 23 to 22, it was a bigger impact, right? But you will see slightly lower storage in this quarter at least this year.
Cameron?
No, I thought the response I heard back from Mr. Daly was bang on the money, I thought. And no, very good. Thank you.
No, yeah, thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I guess when you look at 2022, actually, it was more of an anomalous year than the previous years, right? So we're getting kind of back to baseline where we usually sit. In 4 of the last 5 years, we're pretty much stable, if you will. That it looks like, anyway. So
yeah, exactly.
The bell curve, it goes up and down and up.
Definitely can't predict it.
And that's the kind of like vessel shoot at the end of the year. You know what they're left with. It's, you know, you get it in 1 year, you get it next year. So yep. We got the turns this year, we got the lower storage.
Yep. Perfect.
I heard was still playing with last year anyways, I think so.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay, we're going to move on to 8B, maintenance report.
Working meetings here during month between fall. Definitely on premises inspection of the requirements, replace steering block on the maintenance truck, which coincidentally, parts are what they used to be. We put it in, it worked good for 2 days, and then it failed. It's working, we're replacing it again. Adjusted tracking of 7 to 8 conveyors, that's a seasonal thing. Snow on the road when needed. Annual inspection number 5 block for Dublin buckets. We ended up replacing 10 buckets. Fabricating metal frame to relocate tripper position and coverage. This will be commissioned at a later date with the Assistant Development Control of Winnipeg. The new end-code will eliminate tripper line, tripper drive wheels slipping in the tripper. What would happen is the trippers would, especially in humid weather, the encoder currently mounted on the driving wheels. Humid weather, the driving wheel slips. So the encoder thinks it's moving when it's not. So we mounted it independently, so now the encoder will only see the actual travel. Replace gearbox and motor top valve ends in 1, gearbox and motor fail. Fabricated and installed drain trap extension and dust collection system at bin 4 bin 324. This will allow for easier cleanup in this area. Continue with repairs for crop and samplers. It's in preparation for the shipping season. Item work order log to weekly, monthly dust inspection maintenance. Work the 11th area included. Work with the bill rights as required. Repair dock security gate locks and alarms. Replace corn cell and vertical dock lights. Work with element controls to commission with new rail scale, gate position transmitters. Work with GTR scale to investigate calibration deviations with rail scale number 5. Work with GTR scale troubleshooting, repairing the lead scale number 4. Replace a full switch and boiler constant return tank. Electrical safety authority will then conduct the first of its 2 inspections for the year. What was going to be inverted. And then items to work order.
Questions? Comments, people? Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Through the deputy mayor to the maintenance guy, just out of curiosity, the gearbox replaced, do you keep them in stock or do you have to order them?
We have to order that.
So you know where they want to get them?
No, it's literally a small, it's fractional horsepower on meter horsepower, and the annex pin valves they're just problem shouts because they aren't used every day of the year. They may sit and not turn a year for 3 or 4 months. So you can talk moist weather to cold weather and weather.
Okay.
And this is the first we've ever had to replace with
No, sir.
Anything, Mr. McCauley, Mr. Cameron?
I have nothing.
Mine only related to the gearbox as well, just in terms of whether we're likely to see this problem emerge on the other bins, or is this essentially a one-off?
We probably will eventually see it, that one, Frank. So I'm hoping to get some this year's money, but we have spare.
Okay, thank you.
Gearbox itself is $800.
Any other questions, comments?
Well, through the chair, so that kind of triggers. So, how many gearboxes are in the annex? Is it one
top
of each bin? And we don't do like an annual or a monthly PM where we run them once. We don't have a PM that just runs them once a month and just.
Okay. Moving on to our financial report.
Thank you. Our revenue for the month was $364,000, which is lower than 2023 by $127,000. The main factor in that is in January of 23, we had 3 salt vessels arrive due to weather delays in December of 22, and we had the ongoing steel rail project still at the first part of 23. Our revenues, so our harbor services was down $149,000. Our grain services was up $44,000. Rail services was down $37,000. Leases are up $14,000. Expenses, our labor is up $31,000, which is mainly due to the new contract being signed in 2023. We're still at the 2021 rates. Our utilities are down $10,000, and our operating admin was up $53,000. Our municipal payments are up 17,000, supplies, 5. Outside services at 8, our advertising remains about the same at 3,000, and our administration insurance is up 2,000. Our management fees of 83,333 has been transferred as of January 31st. What's the $1 million annual payment? Our receivables are at outstanding invoices are 30 days and under. Our receivables hold at 871,484. Our payables are 106,862, and our cash on hand is at 1.926,659.
Questions, comments?
Questions of that?
So I hear one or did I hear 8?
Sorry,
My bird just went, what?
Okay.
My apologies.
It seems so much better now.
How did we miss that last one?
It's going.
Oh, did you said that township was up by 17,000 or something like that? Is that over last year? I thought last year we were at the same rate. Or did it not start until March?
Yeah, in January.
Yeah,
So that was January or February. It was big changes.
Okay. Nope, that's good. That's all I had. No.
Mr. Martel,
Nothing, thank you.
Mr.
No.
Mayor,
No, sure,
Frank?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Cameron?
I have nothing. Thanks very much. Good.
Okay, I just have a couple, the expense and labor, 31,000 mainly due to new contract. Is that 31,000 gonna be monthly, every month? Or is it that trying to catch up?
I mean, it all depends on our labor hours too, right? We're not carrying casuals, like we did last year. So it will go down a little. Last year we carried five casuals through the whole year, and now they're, as of almost the end of January, they were laid off. So we're back to just our regular workforce. But there will be an increase just because in 23, the union contract not being signed, the rates were
Right, and the benefits and so on, yeah.
2
Okay.
years.
But will it be, I guess, is it gonna be that 30 grand every year, or?
potentially, but there's so many other factors that are in there as well. I mean,
I'm sorry?
so many other factors that are in there as well.
Okay,
Which is Ron was pointing out, the casuals, for example. The casuals were laid off, however, there was 2 moved to full time, so we're still carrying them, but I think the net is we're minus 3 or 4 people right now. So there'll be a decrease from that, but then there'll be an increase on the comparison of wages.
and our rail service down 37,000. Why is that?
That's all tied into the steel projects, sorry.
It is
The
still.
steel project we had carried over from 22.
Okay,
That's affecting our cargo storage, a great deal. It's also affecting it went up by rail. There's nothing, none of that steel, it's all gone, so it's not going up by rail.
good. Any other questions? Thank you. Moving on, 8D, health and safety.
All right, thank you. There's a whole list of things that you can see that's been completed over the last January 5th to February 9th. I'm not one for going through these because we're all capable of reading. However, I'm not going to read it with the word, but if there's anything in there that you have a question on, so certainly give it a shot at answers. These are, a lot of these are normal things that we get going at the beginning of the year. We look at what priorities, what we need to get trained on, and then we start setting up the sessions. So that's what John's doing at this point.
Questions?
But we don't have a discussion today at all on the salt conversation.
Yes, we're gonna have a little, the 1 PM report.
Oh, okay.
That's,
No, I can
an item there that we can chat on.
I can wait till the next item then.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
Frank
All good, thanks.
and Mr. Cameron?
No, I'm good as well. Thank you very much.
Good. Okay, let's move on to AGM report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So speaking of the salt management, we did deliver an action plan that was due February 1st, and the officers requested an amendment to the ECA by April 2026. And there was some correspondence sent out. So just to give some sort of context to what we are, the Ministry of the Environment is dealing with Rideau Bulk across the street / Logic Tech, and they're dealing with the Port of Johnstown. Not as one, but sort of together as a group, because the same officers in the ministry deals with Rideau Bulk as well as the port. What do you do? So we've had, I thought maybe he was listening. I haven't said anything bad yet. So basically what's going on here is, and I've mentioned this before, in that, want to use my wording correctly here, that we have an officer in the ministry from the Kingston detachment who looks after us that wants certain things incorporated into our ECA. So our ECA was developed back when we first built the dock, back in 2009, was 9-10, so that's when we got approval. So when we got all this federal funding in order to move forward with the new dock, we had to come up with a new salt management plan, which we created. We got approved from the ministry, which basically took our whole 16 acres of dock and had it slope towards this pond. And the idea of that was to accumulate storm runoff and the salts on your pad, and the storm runoff would go into this pond and build up, and then it would slowly trickle out the pond and go eventually make its way to the river. So we do monitoring every year. We hire BlueMetric, and we monitor the outlet of the pond. We monitor 15 meters outside where the receiver is, which is the St. Lawrence River, and 30 meters out from the culvert that goes out to the river. So all our readings at those areas are within the guidelines. However, the readings leaving the pond, right, are high and very higher than what the guidelines, what you're basically allowed. So the conversations going back and forth of how do we get those numbers down. And what I've tried to explain to them was, once with calcium chloride, once you get to a certain concentration, there's no getting that number down. Even if you shut down the salt and didn't have anything running there except the water, it would take years for that number. In my opinion, it would take years for that number to drop down to acceptable limits, because it's got to a certain point of concentration where and salt doesn't evaporate or anything, doesn't dissolve, stays in the water. So some of the ideas we bantered forward was, you know, splitting the pond in half, take half of it out, and then have the outlet further midway through the pond, just throwing some of the things we talked about so you get an appreciation of where we've gone with all this. And then add water to the mixture that's in the half of the pond that's empty, where the salt brine is trickling into, and make sure you monitor it so it never goes out your pond, you know, at a higher level. You keep within those guidelines, but you're not allowed to do that. You can't, they won't allow us. I know there's other sewage works and so on where they mix water and they process it, but for some reason they're not allowing us to do that. Dilution is not the solution, because in their eyes, it's still the same amount of salt that's in there. It's just coming out at a slower rate. But that was the whole point of putting that pond in, that it would come out at such a slow rate that when it mixed with we did a study on this as part of our management plan, when it would mix with the the waters, St. Lawrence, and so on, it would be at a level that we harm it. And that is happening, right? They kind of flip now, and I don't know what happened, but they're now saying that that's not acceptable anymore. Excuse me if I've said this before, but it's when you get us up to speed where we're at. So now we have to come up with an action plan by the 1st of February, how we're going to get the levels down. And we have to have an amendment, ready to have an amendment done in April. So we look at it as 2 separate dates. We looked at it as a group with Rio Ball, that we would have an action plan, and then we would say, these are all the best practices we're going to do. We're going to, when it's raining, we'll shut down the ships a little earlier than we would in the past. So now we, these are things that we can look at the salt companies and say, hey, when it starts to sprinkle or anything, you just stop unloading. We put in some different housekeeping and so on, and shared the action plan with you all. But he said, well, that's not what I was asking for. I was asking for an action plan in the amendment itself. So, well, that looked a little confusing to me. And if you read the correspondence that I sent to you, I think that it's very confusing. So, so then the latest correspondence I had with the officer was to ask him, what are the other ports doing? I need to see what the ECAs are, the other ports, Port Toronto, Windsor, all the other, they're dealing with salt counts. And it was interesting to reply. It's basically, well, I don't deal with those. So I'll ask my supervisor to find out what they're doing there. But I don't know that all of them have ECAs. So I just thought, isn't that interesting? We're working with the port to try and change an ECA that they have. They might not find it as effective as they'd like, but they're looking at us changing that. But there's other ports that don't even have an ECA. It seems kind of, I don't know, unfair to me, to put it very simply. And not to be as a group understanding what the other places, their other offices are doing. So they're not all under the same directive. Let me put it that way. And dealing with the individual ports. I'm not going to start naming names here, but there's other ports where they just recently had inspections and everything's fine. Problem. That's not happening there. So we had a meeting today with the with Logistec, and they've consulted an environmental lawyer, and they've had some other people on the call as well. And basically, it's been 2 weeks since I sent my email asking for more information. Haven't received it. So our direction is to, or this is what we're looking at following, is that we're going to ask them for an update, like where's these ECAs that we said you were going to send us. And whatever we do not want to do anything quickly, and we don't want to do anything that other ports don't have to do. Now, in the end, he's an officer. So if an officer of the ministry, it's not the science part of the ministry, it's the part that gives it the tickets, I can say that. It almost seems to me that he wants to make sure that he gets it off his list, and you know, if he can get it in the ECA, now he has something he can write, potentially write tickets off, and that could come our way, and then we have to deal with that potentially through the courts or something like that. I'm not sure yet. So right now it's still voluntary. What we're going through right now, we're going to continue that. We're going to send an email back and explain where we're at. And where's the information, and we're going to ask for a meeting with them, and the supervisor as well, and we're going to there'll be like possibly 6 of us anyways, our consultant, myself, and Rita Ball, and their consultant, and I don't want to get too many people there. I don't want to look like we're, outnumbered or whatever, but then we're going to sit down at the table and say, okay, we need to better understand this, and explain to us, how this is all working in the ministry, and how can the port be treated the same as the other ports. I don't know that we want to be the first, and we, by all means, we want to do our part. Our stewardship is keep the place clean and so on, and green, and we're all for all of that. But at the end of the day, they need to solve the home roads. This is what's very frustrating. So we're going to do all this work, and then we're going to go spread it out on the roads. I used that, argument in the past, and it doesn't seem to go anywhere with the officers, so. So that's where we're at. I don't think we're ready for legal at this point. I think the course that we've set to try and have continued negotiations, continued communications, so we better understand where we need to keep going with them. We want to have a good relationship with them, that's for sure. And we've had a good one up to now. So because I sent the last email, I'm going to send another one tomorrow. In 2 weeks, we get an update on where we're at and see what kind of response we get. And then we're going to ask for a meeting as well. In the same email, I'm going to ask for a meeting. See if we get his supervisor involved, because so far it's just been the officer who takes the detachment, but nobody else CC'd on it, which I find a little bit different. The only time he mentioned is supervisors when he said, well, I'll ask my supervisor if he can get the other ECAs from the other ports and so on. So a big disconnect. We're all doing their own thing. And I don't think that leaves us in a good position as far as what I think anybody would say that's not fair. So I don't know anybody that would sit there and say this is fair, how you're being treated. So that's kind of the update of that.
Okay, where do you want to start? Mr. Mayor, shoot.
Just refresh my memory. So MECP, provincial,
Yes.
Federal. Have federal Ministry of Environment weighed in at all on port? I mean, it's a federally navigable waterway.
It's interesting. We saw them arrive at the port. My goodness, maybe 8 years ago, and I haven't seen them since.
Okay. Next and only question is: Picton Terminal stopped carrying salt several years ago. Right. We attempted to have a conversation with them to see if this may be one of the reasons they stopped carrying salt.
Well, they could get an ECA, and so now they have one. It's been granted to them, and this is kind of now almost being touted as the showcase port for what they want everybody to do, and it's just not practical. So I mentioned this before. If you get a chance, go onto the Picton Terminal's website. They got a lovely website. You'll see what it looks like there. You'll see that there's a big cliff. So there's a dock with this big huge cliff, and so they bring the salt up this big hill. They put it up on the hill now, but now they're a construction company. Dornican on that port. And so they blasted rock and built a big quarry. So now all the runoff is going to go into this quarry, and they're supposed to build a roof for it. So that's their sort of look what Picton's doing. But I mean, in our pond, we can only go 6 feet down when we hit the water table. So there's no going down to dig a big hole. And I think good for Picton. Like, I'm not trying to knock bad at all. I'm just saying that it's impractical to think that there's any other ports that could do what they're doing because their port is up on a cliff, right? So, but that's what I can share Picton's with you. That's the first thing I got back in the email. But that's really fine. We'll look at it, but it's not practical for any other port to do it that way. It's just, we're not all built on Canadian Shield, 100 feet in the air. Like, it's just not the way it is. So that's where Picton did. Now, last I heard, they haven't finished the roof, but they're working on it. So I'm not sure where that's at right now. As far as I know, they're still not receiving salt.
One more, please.
Yes.
So does our holding pond, I mean, I know it's on the other side of the tracks. Does it have any relationship with Daly or not?
With
Daly?
No, I mean, originally when we did the ECA, we were going to take a very nominal amount. I think it added up to 10% of that liquid that was there or less that they could pump into their tank. So they bring in calcium chloride at like 46% concentrate. They pump water into it to get it down to 28%, so it's usable. And they use it for keeping dust down on the roads. That's what they use for calcium chloride. So we had a sort of a handshake. Well, we have an agreement. It's a memorandum of understanding that we'll use our water to do the dilution. However, the water we have now has other product in it and so on that it's not usable for them at this point. We could go looking into it. I know Mr. Cameron mentioned filter systems and all that, but the amount of money it costs to filter the pond to get 10% into that tank, it really wouldn't do anything for us. Other than show that we're trying to do some things. So we gotta weigh the cost of that and what the benefit is doing that. And so we need to look at that as well. You know, looking at, you brought tanker trucks in to load all that water out of that pond, do a good cleaning. You know, we're looking at that as well. I think there's somewhere in 6 figures for that, right? That may be something that we have to look at. Right now, I'm just not comfortable bringing anything in the ECA that ties us into spending a whole bunch of money on buildings or an osmosis, reverse osmosis system that would cost incredible amount of money, let alone the electricity it takes to run. So it's still a negotiation. It still has to be a negotiation that we're working on. But my hope now at some point they can say, "Here's your order. You need to do this." And at that point, that's when I think we can go a little deeper with political help and so on. So if you recall, when we had the parliamentary assistant for MTO at our site, I had a conversation with them after the original meeting, and they did go to Toronto and on our part to ask about the salt, but there's nothing on record. There's nothing for them to fix in there because they're going to ask what's going on. Where are the work orders? I mean, there are no work orders for replying. So that gets stopped there at that point, right? We're going to further.
Is that a conversation? I mean, I have the email is there. I mean, I have the emails now, right? So is that they're reliable emails, so they're public knowledge. That's something that I mean, I'm not going to stick my nose in it unless you want me to. So if it's the time for me, you know, to talk to the PA or the minister, I'm quite happy to do that.
Yeah, and I've got a good relationship. Thank you very much. I don't think we're quite there yet, but we could be. Okay. Come April, if we get an order, because we haven't met the April deadline, and it's not satisfied until we put in ECA. At that point, it's going to go, it'll have to go political at that point.
I think, I guess my 2 cents is, you know, I've read the emails that I was sent, and I mean, you're doing everything that you can do. You know, I'm happy to be apprised of it at this point, and to a different depth now, I think, than what it was before. And yeah, I think it has to sort of play itself out. You have to get the information that you need to be able to move forward. So, but from my perspective, if there's anything that I can do to help with that, don't be afraid to ask. I'm quite happy to use what I
appreciate that. Thank you.
Just to reiterate, I think I heard it correctly. You said that the effluent that's actually going into the river, though, is within our approved limits. Did I hear that correctly?
15 meters outside.
50 meters outside? Okay.
Right. We take 15 meters and 30 meters from the culvert that enters the river. So if you were to take a rate from the culvert, which a lot of the times you can't because it's dried up and low water, you're not going to get it out there. But, and the other question, the other thing is how much is that to be looking at there, right? Concentrations are high. What's actually going on? There's evaporation and so on. There's not. So one of the ideas is to put a flow meter in. And I discussed that with the NECP, but it's almost like it's kind of late for that. But aren't you, you know, I'm interested in how much is actually going to the river. You know, the concentration may be high, but what is actually coming out of the pond once you take into consideration all the days where it's low, and we've got the summer and it goes down like 2 feet or so. It's evaporating, and then yes, when we have lots of rain and storm events, it does rise back up. And we're not saying we don't get any under there, but you would think you'd want to know how much is actually. So that's something we might be implementing through our negotiations with them, or conversations with them. Is putting in a flow meter, potentially putting in an automatic monitoring system that actually measures the salt levels during the storm events. Right now, it all takes place after the storm events within 24 hours when you do your monitoring. And we spend quite a bit of money on monitoring the metric. They do reports for us every year. We have lots of data. I think our numbers have dropped slightly, like they were better than they were. We've been doing a lot of housekeeping. But at the end of the day, it's those numbers that I was talking to you about to answer your questions further out.
Yeah. And I mean, I struggle with that. I keep saying it. I know it's, you know, there's reasons we make sure of this and what have you, but I haven't heard that the St. Lawrence River itself has a high saline problem. And I mean, that's what I've heard, unless that's something we haven't heard here. But you heard anything about that, or is that just?
I'm not aware.
Okay, yep, that's kind of what I thought.
Again, it's all flowing
into a big body of salt water. Absolutely. So, thank you.
I did have two questions, but you answered them before we got to ask them about the flow meter, the monitoring, so they'll sit listen.
Well, I'm gonna be a little different. What does it actually give us in revenue, the salt? Counting our, you know, the dry bulk cargo and so on. Storage, the whole 9 yards.
plus $1 million.
Sorry?
Over $1 million.
1 million?
Over. Depending on the year.
Okay.
30 a ton, we do 650,000 tons, so. Then you have the ships over there, earthage.
So it is.
You're getting close to the.
It is essential. It is a good chunk.
You know, like if you look at a payback and you're doing buildings so on, I think we could potentially show a payback.
But it depends what
it's
we
not
have.
just the buildings, you don't want buildings on that dock where that is. I mean, if we wanted to go across the street in the lands that we're developing, put some buildings up there to a smaller degree. I think we could show payback. We want some partnership with possibly the government and possibly the salt owners, but not just to do this on our own. It's not that it's impossible, but there needs to be more discussion on it to look at the cost and what the partnership fee is. There going to be any funding? Like, if the government's pushing this hard for it, the Ontario government, are they all pushing this hard, or is it just the environment, not MTO? If they're all pushing this hard, it's like when they did security after 9/11, it was funding for security. So if they're going to take this approach with environment and together, then there's got to be funding for it.
That was one of my
Because
other
it all
questions.
costs a lot of money.
Have we got in contact, or has anybody with the Ministry of Transportation of getting together and saying, hey, we could be at a loss end here, we may have to give this up?
We haven't had the conversation with MTO at this point. They haven't gotten to that stage yet. They could get to that stage, and I think when it does get to that stage, we're going to have a meeting at the port, and we're going to have the mayor at that meeting, and we're going to have to go to MTO there, and that's when we make it a bigger thing. I'm still trying to have the discussions and the communications with the level that we're at right now, because they can make your life difficult, right? I mean, you want to get along and have a good relationship, and we have very good relations, right? You know, but I'm not, if it comes to the point where you have to do this and it's an order, then that's when we're going to have to go take another route. So what is the timing of putting pressure on this entity over here in Kingston from other political? I don't think we're there yet. I think if anything, it can get people upset.
Well, he should put the pressure on us.
Well, he is on his own right now. So I don't see it from anyone else. It's just the opposite, and that's what we're trying to get at. So that's what we want a meeting with this supervisor present to say, is this like a provincial thing, or is this a Kingston thing?
I'm just reading his emails.
We need to better understand it, right? And so I know there's other routes we can go to bring this up a level, but I'm just saying, my opinion, I don't think we're quite there just yet.
And in all fairness,
it's still moving. So,
in all fairness, we're not going by our plane. I mean, we haven't tarped their salt. We're not getting it off.
No. We've tarped our salt. We tarp our salt. We spent a lot of money tarping our salt.
But we haven't.
We're allowed to leave the work face open when trucks are coming in. Okay, so it's still tarped, but there's allowed one working face because you can't keep taking the tarp on and off every time. So we are. I'm not sure what you mean. We're not tarping the salt.
Well, when I drive by there, I see a whole amount of salt.
You're seeing the working face, but there is no salt exposed to the port. I mean, we have records where we have it done within 3 to 5 days. Those are all tarp. So
Well,
We're following our best practices and we monitor that very closely. Like we take pictures of it with our cameras. We have exact dates when the ship was here, how long it took to target. It's in our annual report that goes to the ministry. You can see that when we started doing this, it's dropped down. The time it takes us to get them targeted dropped. And so there's been a lot of progress.
And another, to me anyways, I don't think it should be on there that long. The salt on our docks out there.
But we're a warehouse.
Yeah.
And that's what we're there for. We are a warehouse for salt.
But I mean, the stay there.
Be there until we don't need it anymore. And the deal is that ours is the first to come off our dock. So at the end of the season, before going to the next one, that salt should all be gone. Now sometimes there's some leftover.
I don't think that'll be cleaned up by spring, by April.
Well, the two piles that are on there now are from the cement mines. That's Quebec salt.
Right.
And I didn't agree for them to put that there unless they transfer it all off our dock. I would never leave salt there all year round. So that's all going to be transferred by truck at their cost, not at the port's cost.
Well, good luck. I mean, whatever we can do, we'll do for sure, but it just doesn't, I don't know. It just seems like it's gonna cost us a lot of dough. Or a possibility.
We're not there yet. But,
no.
Potential, and that's when it'll have to come back. You know, we certainly can't buy future councils making a deal that we're gonna do something and we can buy it. I mean, there's that to think of, and there's the whole ratio of what we have to do versus what we bring in the revenue. That's a business decision, right? And we have to get that information.
Yeah, that was my question. So we know the million is, and I'm assuming that's just the revenue line. Yeah, but do we know what the cost line is associated with it? Like the profit line, bottom?
Well, it's.
I mean, if looking at that model going forward,
that's when you invested in your dock, and we spent 13 million of the port / Edwardsburg Cardinals money. So that 13 million we put in, we want to get back. So that $1 million going towards that 13 million. Why would we even have done that? So the actual cost is none of our labor. So the cost is the environmental monitoring. So you're looking at probably $15,000. I think myself, Sean, a little bit to a certain extent. There might be another 10 grand involved in labor somewhere, 5 to 10. So as far as the labor goes, because the stevedores handle it, it's probably the monitoring under 20 grand. So you'd say, well, you made $9,980,000, but that's also going towards paying for the dock that we invested 13 million. So we did that in 2014. We're 10 years in, so we're pretty close to getting that dock paid for now. So the rest is money that you could put towards buildings or, well, not necessarily buildings, but other processes.
So that's a discussion for a different day, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so too.
Any other questions on the salt management?
Not for today.
Duke Dally, move
All right,
on.
I'll get back to the report. So our engineering report, we'll have that together. We're just piecing that together, so that should be ready for a budget discussion in March. Land development updates. So there's no change. We're still waiting for our survey. And we talked about this before. I have nothing really more to update. It's the same spot. I did meet with the B6 Economy President Ron Brophy. He had some potential business partners that he brought to the port. A group from Italy and another group from, I believe, from Holland. So we did a little tour presentation of what the port has to offer and so on. There's no real details of that, and nor would I go into details that sort of B6's business and so on. But just to let you know that there's potential, there's some nibbles going on as far as potentially using the port, so just so you're aware of that. We discussed the stevedore steel beam, rebar, fertilizer. There's nothing set. There's no further update on the cement business. We did have a quote that went out today on steel from one of our older customers. Not a big amount, but gave a quote out of 3,000 tons, which would be a small shipment amount, but it all counts, and maybe that will turn into more. So we're hoping we get that business. That with the beams, some rebar, and so on. I mean, you never know how your year's going to go. Right now, there's really not a lot on the books, but that can change very quickly. I've mentioned this before, when comparing the first quarter of 24 to 23, we're going to struggle because that steel that was left over in 2022, you're going to always make that comparison. Why are we down? So I'm just explaining why you're down. Of course, we're working on the budgets, and just to let you know that I'm going to be away from the 7th to the 6th. That's my report. Any questions?
Any comments, questions on that? People? Frank?
All good, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Cameron? Good. I just have one on Ryan Beaupre. What's the status with him? Does it look promising, or did he come by himself?
No, he met some people, brought some people with him. Two different groups. I had them on a Friday and on a Monday, I believe it was. And it was just a quick 1 hour presentation, show them the report, show them what we have to offer and so on. I can't go into much more detail than that, to be honest with you. It's just potential business. I think Ryan's working really hard at building his business. I wish him all the luck, but it's his business, and I don't really want to get into more detail than that.
Good, thank you. Okay. Moving on to F. I guess this is a treasure, right? Just usually come with an update. Can you?
Absolutely.
Sure.
So, yes, the Robert or Fort GM had reached out to me last week to put together something on the distribution of income. So for council, we've obviously discussed a lot of this before at our budget meetings and stuff, but I think for the benefit of the port staff and the committee, maybe just to give a little bit of a history on where this dedicated capital reserve came from, and what those funds are being deployed for. So a lot of this came out of our asset management plan, which was done in 2021. And they had figured that as a township, our capital spend should be $5 million just to maintain what we have. And our average spend at the time was $2.2 million. So we were having a funding deficit of $2.8 million a year. And that builds up year over year over year. So I think everybody's seen in the news when they talk about an infrastructure deficit in Ontario. We're no different at the township. So the dedicated capital reserve that was created was to, one of the things that in our asset management plan was recommended is that we put a 1.5% capital levy to the ratepayers with a 20-year plan to catch up. So that levy would be in place for 20 years, and wasn't the direction that we proceeded with. So instead, we used a portion of the management fee that we get from the port to put towards our dedicated capital reserve. When that money was increased, all of that increase went into our dedicated capital reserve. So nothing was given to the township for operations. This was all for capital. This takes place of the capital levy that we would have put onto the ratepayers of Edwardsburg Department. The other aspect of that is the surplus sharing for the excess inventory sales. So we've been splitting that 50-50 as a distribution of income. And I know there was a bit of confusion last month when it was mentioned as a dividend. It was the auditor's request that we call it distribution of income, and a dividend is a distribution of income. So it's one or the other. So we'll refer to it now as just a distribution of income rather than dividend, just to be consistent in our way of classifying it. The intention on the township's part is that dedicated capital reserve is meant to be used
as soon as it is received. So, brings to my last part is just the usage of funds. So 2023, we didn't use everything that was allocated into that dedicated capital reserve because we had the County Road 2 project, which was funded with federal, provincial money. It was a joint project with the county. Took up a lot of our resources in what we could actually achieve for capital budget. So our final capital budget was about 8.3 million, I think, and our actuals came in at about 7.6. So we were very close to what we had said we were going to spend. In 2023, we used a total of 445,000 to supplement our capital program. $100,000 of it went to the Johnstown tennis and pickleball court. So we didn't have to totally rely on taxation for that. $145,000 went to the carbon pool for the line replacement, and $200,000 went to tax funded items related to the the County Road 2 program. Now, 2024, we have 1.2 million in that reserve to spend, and we're spending it all on our road program. So we have roads are our biggest infrastructure deficit. So we are spending 1.9 million of our $4.2 million budget on roads, and 1.2 million of that will come from our dedicated capital reserve. Future items that will need to be funded out of that, obviously, is roads. We have an aging fleet of tandem plow trucks and everything else. So this will help us bridge some of that gap. So this year, the spending a capital budget of $4.2 million. We're still under the $5 million that we should be spending every year on our infrastructure. So we're still even at an $800,000 annual deficit. But baby steps will get to where we need to get to. I think with our administration and operations committee and senior management team, when we were preparing our budget, a big focus went on what can we actually achieve, because it's really important that if we say we're going to do $4.2 million, or in this case 1.9 million roads, we need to make sure that we execute 1.9 million roads, and that it's doable for us. So that's a bit of a background on how this dedicated capital reserve came to be, and how the funding of it really does help offset the obligation that the ratepayer has. If we were to go and try to fund this through taxation, you would be seeing double digits every year, and we wouldn't need that. So I hope with everything from this presentation is more just to show where we're at from the township side, and how we're going to utilize money that comes into our dedicated capital reserve. Because we do have other funding. We do have yearly grant funding that helps. Another good example is we're spending 1.1 million in 2024 on bridges and culverts, and we've been able to save some of our funding, and not out of direct. So a lot of what taxation is going to in our capital budget is money into roads, and then the rest on recreation items, replacing some equipment. We're dealing with a situation where we need 3 plow trucks over 3 years, but it's an 18-month delivery cycle on those. So we kind of have to do them the year before, and so we're kind of ordering our second one. We'll take delivery of the first one that we did last year in the budget that will then come out of reserves, and then we hopefully, when it comes time to do the third one, we'll have enough put back into our public works reserves that we can start to pay off. So we kind of look at there's always three levers we can pull. We can pull the taxation lever. We can look for additional sources of grant funding, and we can take on debt. And the important thing to know from our capital budget that hopefully will will pass on Monday. That we were able to do this without taking on debt. So we've taken on debt the last 2 years. So now we'll have 1 year where we can take on any debt. And then next year we'll look at it again when we living purchases. And then probably that's in a nutshell. Just I guess just the classification of what that distribution of income is, and also what the plan feels about. So I'll leave it to any questions from committee, board staff, or
Board staff? Question?
Is there we talked about this before, there might be signage or so on, giving the board some sort of, they sponsor, they take a ball, there's a sign saying Port of Johnstown or something there, or, I mean, I know that we talked about that before, that we just to show that the community, that it's important that they see that their community board is putting money towards the township projects.
And I think there's many ways through the chair of the Port GM that we could look at how that messaging gets out as part of a broader communication strategy. And so whether it is for some of the items, it's kind of hard with our road program because there's I think 12 or 13 roads that will be covered under this program, and in some cases in our rural areas it's only one section that's being done, and then in future years the other sections will be done. So that one might be a little bit difficult, but something I could definitely take that to council and see how we want to communicate that to general public.
I think the signage would work for specific projects. Like then for roads, maybe you're either every port or something, in the paper every year convention.
I think when we do, a press release once the budget's done, right? There'll be like I'll do a press release with that, and there'll certainly be an acknowledgement, of how we got the funds for it, and you can trust me that it'll be highly appropriate when it comes to that.
So more longer term for the roads, I can see that. I do appreciate that, but it's more like that we see, like we used to do before. We had the community money for the sponsor, and I have signs as well. We have community projects. We've got some that's 12 by 12, so we're not using it. So I'll pass them on to you, and we can put a couple up on the fence or something. That's great. But thank you so much for the explanation. I know my staff and appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other? Mr. McCauley?
Yeah, through you, Deputy Mayor, to the Treasurer. I understand the $1 million, the annual fee, and that's in our budget, would be in the township budget as well. The distribution of income comes at the end of the year, and I assume is based upon basically how well the port does relative to budget. My concern would be, does the township budget incorporate an expectation of an amount for the distribution of income? Because if the port doesn't perform, and sometimes that's out of our control, poor crop year, salt boats don't come in, we don't perform, we don't have the money, what options does the township then have? So I'm a little concerned as to maybe the timing of everything and how it impacts the township and the expectations around the port. Again, the $1 million, that's in there, and that's everything's fine with that. It's how the distribution of income gets budgeted by the township and what's the expectation for the port around that.
Through the chair to Mr. McCauley, we do not budget a distribution of income. We use it for the next capital year because it comes at the end of a fiscal year. We use that for the next year. So the money that would be allocated to our capital program is money that is already in our account and is spent the following year. So there is no budgeting on our part for a distribution of income at all.
Great. That was the answer I was hoping to hear. Thank you for that.
Is that good, Frank?
That's great.
Okay, good. Mr. Cameron?
No, I think, thank you, Mr. McCauley, for asking that. I was wondering the same, and good response back. So, nope, that's great. Thanks. There's no mitigating liability then in our budget for the township. Excellent. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, thank you for your report, and I want to say thank you to both our staff, but also us, township staff on board. I think we discussed this all through an election cycle. It was part of the mandate that we campaigned on, that when we would do exactly what we're doing and do it responsibly. And I think everyone can take great pride in the fact that there's improvements going on. There's 14 roads that are being paved this year, and the port funds are being they're directly responsible for that. So the majority of those wouldn't have gotten done without those funds. So we said we were going to do this. We're doing it, moving forward with it, and I'm quite proud of the work that everyone's doing to move these projects forward.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah. How much was the 2023 amount that was contributed, if you will? Do we know that yet? Or?
Through the chair of Councilor Ward, it was a little bit over, or just under $540,000.
The end of 2023.
Yeah, that's in the year 2023 that will be finished.
Okay,
586.
586.
Or 586.
That was the first year. Second, 2023 was, I believe, was around 550 and around 560, something like that. I think.
And that's in addition to the $1 million, is that right? That we get?
That would be inclusive. So when we did the 1.2 million that's available for the 2024 capital budget, that is all of the capital portion of the management fees plus the two surplus or distribution of income payments. That's what we paid out of that. Okay.
Thank you.
You okay?
Oh, yeah.
On page 19, I mean, we're going to go into it anyways in the budget, but it's the part of the auditor review, right? It's 586.
That's what was going.
The actual payments.
The actual was that.
Okay.
Because then it comes down to what is the commodity price at the time, exactly how many tons that we sell. So it's never exactly the thing. The first year was exactly on budget because we already knew ahead of time. And they did it after the fact. This one we did it ahead of time.
Everyone good? Okay. Going to move on to 2024 budget revenue and expense.
All right, so start off with the normally do we have a summary and then we have some details that kind of back up the summary. And what I usually do when I'm presenting it is we'll go as deep as you want to go, and so if you have questions as we're going, just please make sure that you stop and obviously answer those questions. So we're going through the revenue. I just Before I start, I think you have to have like a clear understanding on, this is just a budget number. There's a lot of risk. This is a very aggressive budget compared to last year. Last year was a record year. But I don't know that anybody wants to see us making less now that we passed a certain threshold of 11 million, but that's going to be very, very aggressive to hit. We do not have anything fixed that would guarantee other than our leases. And so when we're talking about earthage and so on, we're looking at averages sometimes, we're looking at previous years or what years we think we'll be close to. So that's kind of what we're following. It's not a perfect science. We've been fairly close in years past. So I just wanted to make sure we understand that. It's not like we're collecting money from everyone every year, and you know that this revenue is coming in. As I said, other than your leases that you know you're getting every year with a 1.5% increase, everything else is kind of expectations and you're hoping for. So on our hardware services, our birthday, we're looking at the same budget as 2023. We're just under 2023 actuals. So we have 140 there. Our mooring again, we're doing it similar. There is some risk there, and I'm hoping we're going to get other projects. We're not going to get as many salt ships, so we're going to lose a little bit of privilege there. I'm hoping we can gain it back in other vessels that'll come in. The dry bulk, basically, you can see that we've dropped that to 640,000. That's based on receiving 475,000 metric tons of salt and 25,000 metric tons of aggregate going out of the port. We've achieved that 25 before. We've had some years where we've had 2 loads go out. We've had some years we have no loads of aggregate go out. This year we're expecting 1 load. So that's the 25,000 metric tons. So that's where the 640,000. You can see it's above last year's budget, but it's going to be lower than the 873, and a lot of that is because of the record salt. The break bulk cargo, its potential. Rebar in 2024, I mentioned some of that, potential steel beams. I know I'd like to see a higher number, but when there's nothing on the books at this point, it's difficult just to put big numbers down, just to say, hey, I mean, I want to be practical about it. I don't want to put zero, nothing on the budget, but on the book. But I found in the experience in the past that things will show up, things will come in, and that's what we're hoping for. The liquid bulk, I'm hoping now that the tank's been repaired, that they get more business going, and that we get back up to previous levels. We had 2023 was the first year, and the second half of the year where they actually got the tank going again. So now it's in full operation. I'm hoping for a good year with the liquid bulk. Cruise vessels, we did have a couple that talked to us in 2023, I believe it was, or 22. 22,
they told us they'd be possibly bringing in 24.
So that's, it's not a big revenue one, but we don't want to put zero down because we did get notification 2 years ago now that we have to follow up to see is that actually going to happen. Things can change, but on the other hand, cruise, they stay many years ahead when they're doing their, looking at where they're going to go. Dry bulk. This is just when we get a request for extra storage on our dock that it's not a lease. For example, when the Celine Mines pile that you see there now in the on the east side of those pillars on the dock, if you ever see, there's one pile that's there that we're loading out of now. That wasn't expected, and they asked for extra space. So we do a charge, we just do a monthly charge. That's not other fees, but it's not a lease. It's like, okay, you're going to use it for 5 months. You're going to pay the same amount of money as the other guys are paying. Just you're going to do it. It's like a month to month. The break bulk cargo. Again, we're hoping for this is storage. This is the storage portion. We saw it above about the wharfage. So you have your wharfage when it comes in. You have your storage when you're storing it. So I'm putting an amount there. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging. I hope we get another big project. But comparing to last year, the 173,000, that was 4 months of steel that was sitting on our West Uplands that had to go in 23. It was left over from 22. I know I mentioned that before, but keep that in mind. I'm really struggling to get the numbers up on the revenue. because of some of the loss of salt and the lack of that steel happening at the port. But on the other end, what you'll see coming up is putting extra money in for drying revenue and so on. So the security, we're going to say it's going to be about the same. Altogether, our total 1.117 million, as far as the budget number for revenue on harbor services. Any questions on the harbor services?
Just one quick one, if I can, Jim. And I think you said it already, but the 173, 112 is due to steel that was already on the dock and then.
Yeah, it was in our West Uplands, Storage West Uplands, and it was left over from the 22 project that was supposed to all be out by the end of 22, but it stayed behind, and it took another 1, 2, 3, I think it was April, before it was all done. 4 months. We got storage for 4 months.
4 extra months. Yeah, no, I just noticed that, you know, that was the biggest mover. Really,
yeah. So I'm really hoping we can get a piece of that back.
Yeah, no, good.
Grain services, storage, 1872. So we might be thinking, well, we're already starting in a lower position in the grain storage things that we are. We're also saying that when we approve the drying project, that we're going to have additional 5,000 ton storage bin, and that we're going to have additional corn coming in. So we put those monies that we Kevin presented to you as far as the revenue expenses of that whole dryer project, and took those numbers that were on that report and brought them over to this report because it affects different types of storage, mortgage, and so on. So that's why you see that number slightly higher. But what is the risk? The risk is the dryer doesn't get done on time. I had a meeting with the contractor took place on Friday, and he's telling me that he will have it by October 18th, that it'll be commissioned and ready to go. So that's our best date at this point, which will be just in time for the harvest. So that's all I can go on. That's the update on that one. Aeration, we're looking at similar, plus additional corn with new dryer. You can see that quite often as you go through here. We'll go down to our receiving by truck. Similar to 2023, which was a record year, keep that in mind, so that's a high number. Delivery by vessels, similar to 2023. Delivery by rail. I'm going to go similar on that as well, and delivery by trucks. I used the 3-year average from that one. So all together on our in and out, 4.285 million versus 4.216. Some of the services that go along with the in and out and storage is cleaning, and we have grain drying. We have a big increase in our grain drying if all goes well, and of course, you mentioned risk, but there is risk there. What kind of season are we going to have? How wet is it going to be? So on and so forth. So there's always that, right? So beyond soybean drying, we looked at our inventory for this year, ending I think we took it in January, Sean, and we're at 3,000 tons. So that's what that number is there. Normally, I would hold back on half of that, so on, but in order to get the numbers even close to what we've had in the past, we're looking at selling that whole amount. That does not include anything in 2024. That all depends on the type of season we have in 2024. But that's where we're at the end of the year in the inventory. So some of the smaller categories graded in for analysis. Sale of grain, that's based on our inventory. We're down in wheat, 600 metric tons. But we are also up in corn. So whenever we have to trade grain for the corn, that's looked at as a sale of grain. Okay. So it's taking one and trading with the broker to come up with the other. Just so we understand that. And then we have our quality control fumigation, which is based on the amount of grain that you bring into your port. So you have a record year like 926,000, you're going to have big numbers there. That number drops, that number is also going to drop. So keep that in mind. So altogether, our grain services, 9,250,000, very aggressive number. We're gonna do our best to hit that and hope for a really good harvest. On our rail, we're looking at, around $10,000 in storage. We've already had some this year. We're hoping we're going to get more from the Jones Rail and for storage user tankers. And I mean, again, there you see the rail cargo handling in 2023. So that's for the steel project again. So it's something to keep in mind whenever you have a big project like that. Just the steel coming in, it's going to come in by ship and go out by rail. That is a huge money maker for the port. That's the type of projects that you want. You're getting the workage coming in the vessel. You're getting the storage. It's going to go out slower because it's going out by rail. Big money maker. It's not there right now for us this year. And projects happen that way. You'll get them for 2 years and you won't see them for a year and then they'll come back. It all depends on what's going on in the area and what the prices are, what the supply chain looks like. A lot of steel comes through the Port of Houston and comes up through rail. So just to give you an idea of where that 122,000 came from on the actual last year. On our leases, this is one of the items that we usually come pretty close on our budgeting because they're fixed costs, fixed revenues. I mean, and so we've had an increase that's incorporated into the leases, and so we'll have $647,000 there, and compared to last year, $10,000 increase. So altogether, we're looking at $11,018,095 in revenues. We do have some details on that if you want to go there, but I'll wait till I'll answer questions on where we're at so far before we get into the expenses.
Any questions, answers yet? Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
And it concerns, for me, it concerns the line that the sale, and it may not be in this, it's just one for my own clarity. When we do the surplus share with the township, it's the sale of excess inventory. Is there a line in which that would be?
No, we're not budgeting any because it's just a sale now. It's no longer an expense. So when you compare our budgets from 2023, you have to remember we did our budget in 2023 before the auditor's report. The auditor's report said you cannot call it an expense. But we already did in our budget. It's a distribution of cash for your cash account. It's no longer an expense anymore. So there's nothing expense on that line anymore.
Okay, but is it reported as revenue in the revenue line anywhere? I get that we're taking it out of the expense line.
It's under soybean drying as the total.
And so the amount that is in soybean, and then like last year, that number would have been just under 1.2 million.
Right.
So
that is the total. There's nothing on this budget that has anything to do with Sharon's surplus.
No, I understand that. My question is how it's recorded as it's recorded as revenue.
Yes.
Right. I'm not talking expenses. I'm strictly talking revenue.
Yeah, it's recorded
so,
as the 165.
Okay, and so out of last year's 2 million, the actual.
Yes.
Right, 1.2 of that would have been the sale of excess inventory.
Right.
Okay, I just want to be clear where the revenue line is that it's included.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry.
That's all. No, I get it.
Just had to catch up.
It's always been a little confusing to me because especially when you get to the expense side where the 986 comes out, now it magically just disappears, but yet we still have to include it as revenue. And it just, I find it weird. So.
Yeah, I may just do, go a little further on that. Part of the action that we had last year when it came to the surplus was we're going to sit down and figure out how we're going to work out distribution of income from the port. And the staff was supposed to go away, the treasurer, myself, CAO, come back with maybe some potential ideas that was raising action, and we never did that. And I think what we really need to look at is how we do the distribution of income and not base it on surplus of anything as far as selling grain or whatever. I think it should just be just giving you my opinion here. At the end of the year, here's what your budget was, here's what you made. this is what you've got in your capital expenses coming up for the next 5 to 10 years. How much at that point is the township comfortable with taking as a distribution of it? Because it's not, as I said, this 1650, there's no soybean left after that. We can't keep saying, well, it's going to be the sharing of the surplus soybeans. It's not going to be there. Eventually that goes away.
Through the chair, I didn't mean to hijack your budget meeting with a discussion on surplus grain. That's a discussion for a different day.
Oh,
I just wanted to know what line item it was included in.
Yeah.
Continue on with the budget discussion.
So we're okay with all the expenses? Good. All right, so on the labor, we're looking at 1.87 million. So this is looking at a 4% increase plus additional labor. Labor is another one of those difficult things. It goes with how busy you are at the port. If we get very, very busy, your labor, more so in your casuals that come to work, is going to go up. All right. There's a lot of things that affect it, but I think maybe on page 4 on the detailed copy, I tried to give a little breakdown of what labor could look like at the port. And does everybody have that? Look at that. It's just page 4 on the details breakdown. Okay. So we're looking at how many employees have we had at the port in 2019 and 20, and you can see full-time, it's broken down full-time, maintenance, and casual. And you can see that numbers fluctuates quite a bit, but we seem to get our extra maintenance guy in, and then he leaves or something happens. We've had a really hard time trying to get a positive footing and get more people at the port. 2023 ended with 20 people. So what we're looking at this year is we've already had 2 of our casuals move to full-time, so now we have 11 full-time grade instead of the 9 that we had. Full-time maintenance, we're looking at getting an additional person there. We've had a couple of people leave that department for different reasons, at least one, and possibly another one that could potentially leave. So we're definitely minimum looking at, and we need another three employees based on that scenario. When you look at the variables that affect their labor costs, and you look at the additional sick days going from 6 to 10 days, that's 640 lost days, additional lost days. It's not just the 10 days times 8 hours times 20 people. It's basically, we're looking at the difference between what it was and what it is. If you look at personal days now at 5 and 3 are pay, that's additional lost time that we won't have labor at the port. Well, what if they don't use your personal time? I can tell you they're going to use their personal time. More vacation time. We have an aging workforce. So we're just, we got a new dryer, we need a dryer operator. Our total lost hours, I was looking at it just based on miles around 3,600, which based on 2,080 hours a year. There's 2 employees, it's 1 point something, but you can't split employees. So there's 2 employees right there that we're going to lose because of the new laws, Canadian labor of the 10 sick days and the up to 5-person things. So just to give us sort of a little bit of a breakdown of where we're at as far as the labor goes. We started last year. We had a lot of people work a lot of overtime last year. We're trying to build our workforce up as much as we can. So that's the 1.87. We base our overtime around 13%, and then our benefits have gone up as well. So if we look at the next page, I'm back to the summary, by the way, in case you're wondering where I am. Expenses on the summary page 3. If we flip the page over, you can see a breakdown of our benefits. And so you can see the labor hours is repeated, and then we go through this and we can see now there's we're really pleased with our mediums, with Big and Sun Life with the rate increases. They're minimal this year, but we also have an increase in wages, so that's going to up the amount, right? Plus a couple of added people. So we're looking at our benefits budget to be around $1 million, past $1 million. And that includes an additional 1,200 to 240 for an added salary. That wasn't in the total. So I was just thinking, anybody added that total up from 106.3, there's also 12,000 in there in case you're wondering if the math doesn't know. So that's the benefits, and our total labor there is 3.180 million. So any questions on that?
Just more comment, one question, and I apologize, I actually have to leave early tonight. So the labor code changed, 10 sick days, 5 personal days. So is that through the contract, or
no? That's the contract is 6 days. However, the federal government made a change, and they all federally regulated employees, which we are entitled to 10 sick days, 5 paid sick days, 5 personal days, 3 are paid. And that's for all federally regulated employees as of the beginning of December.
And that relates back directly to the personal leave line on this budget, the 18,385.
Yes.
Okay, that was my question. I think honestly, like for me, when I looked at this portion of the budget, I think, you know, the fact that we didn't, you know, that we settled the contract that was 2.5 years or 20 months, whatever it was, you know, behind, you know, these increases are largely due to that, realistically. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. I think, you know, when I read through last year, and I gave you guys a hard time almost every meeting about overages on budget, you delivered under budget, right? So you know, as much as well, that's our job. We have to do that. So but in there's a compliment to you guys, right? Like when I went through those lines, I see very little wrong with this. It's very much indicative of the fact that, you know, there was 20-month lapse in the contract, really. I think everything else in here is fantastic. So that's, I mean, there's benefits, everything.
We just stop now.
Yeah. I won't be here for it. I apologize. I do have to leave. There was a death in my wife's, good friend of my wife's family, and I have to be there for 8:30. So I apologize. I apologize for jetting, but I do have to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Your excuse.
Thank you. Go. You guys keep going.
You continue on here?
No, I mean, I think that the mayor said it eloquently as far as how this is well put together. I mean, you know, overall, when you look at the overall package, I guess, you know, if for some reason we come in at the same as the 2023 budget, 10 million revenue, obviously there's a different conversation there, but it's not like it's, you know, it'll still be a profitable year, just percentage wise. So, well, yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, I think that you know, I think the staff has proven they can pivot if need be, and you know, if revenue changes, well, you know, we can figure expenses as well. Some of those expenses that are fixed, obviously, they're harder to do, but you know, I think I have faith in that. But so, but you just touched on something, you know, and I mean, it's probably a different question. So, you know, until we really see the capital budget requirements, the cash flow, obviously, because I'm really I mean, I need to see that cash flow in the long range plan. It's really hard to figure out some of these numbers and say whether this, you know, whether everything's good here or not. But I think these expenses here, there's no issue with those expenses, and you know how they've you know grown, evolved, I guess, from year over year. So that work makes sense for me. So. That's it. Yep.
I just have a couple questions for that. Concern that you say they get 10 sick days. Are they going to accumulate them and then cash them in?
No,
we have to use.
They can carry them over to the next year, but they can only have maximum days. So it's just kind of a different rule. Yeah. But it's a little complicated because our contract is 6. It's entitled to the 6 days. January 1. Backseat. They get 6 days. The government, you're allowed to carry over up to 10. You can't have more than 10. So let's say somebody had a carryover 4 days, that would go in January, they would be entitled to 4 days. Plus 2, which are in our contract. So it's always the best of your contract, or with the government, which Labor Canada is put in the code. So you got to follow the code. You have to have all the contract. And so that does get confusing.
I got another
But
question.
at the end of the day, no matter what, they can't have more than 10 days in a year.
Another question I have, just out of curiosity, is it cheaper to hire a full-time employee rather than pay all the overtime? Or is it?
Well, it depends. Casuals do not get benefits.
Oh, okay.
Right, but now they are entitled to sick time off as well, and they're entitled to personal time off as well. So that's changed a little bit. It's an interesting question. Full timers, would it cut down? I think, I don't know that it would cut down on our overall overtime. The amount of the overtime is lower with a casual than it is for a full time. So you really, you want to have enough staff that you can run the business outside of like the busy harvest. And then you want to continue to casuals that can come in and get to your peak. But we're struggling getting those casuals now, right? So we got to be extra sure that we have enough full timers. Because what will happen after your harvest is some like to have the winter off and come back maybe in the summer and collect unemployment or whatever. But some also just want to work, and so you'll end up losing some potentially, right? In the past, it was in the port where many years back, it was quite easy to get casuals. And the wheels never found the port where they had 20 casuals. There was a lot more difficult to keep down. So spinning around your question.
No, that's good.
So it's a little bit cheaper on your casuals, but then you don't have enough full timers at the core of the business, then that's not good either.
Thank you very much. Good, Steve.
So that I promised the end of labor there. You want to continue with utilities now?
Anything? All I have is it's good. I was a little surprised of the total budget for the harbor service. I thought maybe it might be up a little. That you might budget up a little, but
based on what?
That's fine. Well, I just with everything coming in with all your, you know, the Beaufries, the Smith. I know it's not locked in gear. I know it's not, you know, locked, but at least we've got a lot of people kicking tires more than.
Yeah, that's the struggle, right? As Councillor Ward mentioned, and when we get into our capital budget next month, we're talking about, you know, what we have. Then we got to look at our cash flow.
Yeah.
And if you have your revenue too much and inflate your cash flow, now you put yourself at risk to have the money to pay for those capital programs. So I'm usually way more conservative than I am at this budget. This is a very aggressive budget here.
Yeah, I understand.
So I just want you to all understand that.
No, I understand. I understand where you're coming from. Just a little surprised.
Put them a little higher, and there's nothing on our clock right now. It's kind of just switching, right? So I didn't put it at 0. I put some at 25K and so on. But there's nothing on the books, so that's the risk. That's the risk.
No, good. Thank you so much. Well done. Any other questions on the budget review? I need
okay, sorry. Okay, so I didn't complete the review. I only got as far as labor, but if you're okay with not going through the rest of it, I'm okay too. I just want to know where we're at, because
I mean,
if you don't want to hear the budget if it's full, then I'm certain I can save my voice.
It's the revenue expense on page 7. Is that?
Well, I'm on page 3 right now. We just completed at the top the labor, and then I was going to go into your utilities, outside services, materials and supplies, and all the rest of it. But you know, this is not. I'm not asking for an action item tonight.
No, there's no recommendation.
I'm just asking you for you to receive it, and then you guys can look it over. And if you have more questions, I hope we don't have a lot for the next meeting because we're going to be quite busy with capital.
Right.
And then we'll look to get this approved at the next budget.
Yeah, there's no recommendation on this one.
Not tonight. I thought that wouldn't really be fair. You guys want to have a little bit more time.
Yeah, if you want to keep talking.
What would you like to?
People?
Well, like I said, when I was listening to, anyway, when you talk about the labor there, the rest, I didn't have any notes that I saw that were, didn't seem like just year-over-year growth.
No, material supply.
Or that you well explained with your comments, but that's just my 2 cents. I mean, you know, I'm not sure.
The labor is well laid out. You know, that's probably one of the biggest, you know,
huge
of it all. So
Pretty close.
No, I mean, if you wanna keep talking.
So if there's anything in here, like outside services, a big line, R&M's a big line, then you can go to this and it breaks it down a little more so you can see that. So keep that in mind when you're looking at it, whatever. And then if you have any questions, bring us back to the next meeting. That'd be great. Thank you.
Good. So I need a move and a seconder for the action items, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. A, grain operation report, B, maintenance report, C, financial report, health and safety report, GM report, the distribution of income date, update, treasury report, and the 2024 budget revenue and expense budget. Moved by Mr. Ward, second by Mr. Smell. All in favor? Carried. Number 9, approval of disbursements, court accounts. Is there any questions, answers on? Any questions on them? Pretty straightforward. Unless you got some kind of concern, anybody take a look, they look good. I'm good. I need a mover to approve the disbursements. Moved by Mr. Snell, second by Mr. Martel. All in favor? Carried. Council inquiries and notice of motions? Anything? Chair's report, none. Question period, we have nobody. Okay, we're on a closed session. I'd like to thank our committee members. Thank you very much, Frank. Thank you very much, Mr. Cameron.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good week. Have a good month.
We're gonna go into closed session. Who has closed
Take
session?
care, everybody. Bye now.
Thank you.
Ready?
I read it before we leave.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor, or Deputy Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Chris Ward, that the committee proceeds into closed session at 8:29 in order to address the matter pertaining to section 2392C, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, specifically industrial property, and minutes of closed session dated January 30th, 2024.
All in favor? Carried. Closed session.
Thank you, here. Moved by myself, seconded by Chris Ward, that the closed meeting of the committee does now adjourn and open meeting does now resume at 8:44 p.m.
Thank you. Thank you. And we have the minutes of the committee.
We do, did you report it?
Yeah, what were you on our on the section of the application of the land municipality, we had a closed session with the court manager, and we left it as a dead issue. We'll move on. Whatever discussion on it.
Yep. All right. So as far as the minutes go, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Waddy Smale, that the committee receives and approves the minutes of the closed session dated January 30th, 2024.
And adjournment.
By myself, seconded by Councillor Chris Ward. The committee does now adjourn at 8:46 p.m.
All in favor? Carried.